The galaxy was an expanse of staggering complexity. Thousands of star systems interconnected through trade, politics, and war. Great civilizations rose and fell in cycles, their fates dictated by power and influence. Empires thrived on the backs of the weak. Alliances were forged out of necessity rather than morality. And the Galactic Council, the supposed beacon of order, functioned more like a consortium of self-serving bureaucrats than a true governing body. Among the forgotten were the Tavalan, a race that had once stood at the pinnacle of knowledge and innovation. The Tavaline had not been warriors nor conquerors. Their legacy had been one of creation, engineers, architects, and scientists whose contributions had propelled the advancement of civilizations across the stars. Their technology had revolutionized energy distribution, medical advancements, and artificial intelligence. Theirs was a people built on the pursuit of progress. But wisdom alone was not enough to protect them. Centuries ago, the Zurvan Dominion, a war-driven empire built on conquest and bloodshed, had turned its attention toward the Tavalan. Not because they were a threat, nor because they held a strategic position, but because they were vulnerable. A civilization that could not defend itself was nothing more than a prize for those who could. The war was not a battle. It was a massacre. The Tavalan resisted, but their fleets were designed for exploration and commerce, not war. Their defenses crumbled, their homeworlds were reduced to ash, and their libraries of knowledge, containing the wisdom of thousands of years, were obliterated in mere days. When the slaughter ended, the Zurvans did not claim the remnants of the Tavalan as part of their empire. They did not assimilate them, nor rebuild upon their ruins. Instead, they scattered them, driving the survivors out into the void like dust in the wind. They were not conquered. They were erased. Those who survived became refugees, their name reduced to nothing more than whispers in forgotten records. They wandered from system to system, seeking sanctuary, only to find doors slammed in their faces. The Galactic Council, with its endless regulations and diplomatic doublespeak, declared the Tavaline a displaced people with no political significance, a bureaucratic death sentence. Over time, they faded into obscurity. Some were enslaved, forced into labor by the same civilizations that had once relied on their intellect. Others were exiled to barren worlds, abandoned in the cold emptiness of space with no means of escape. And so, the Tavalan became ghosts in the galaxy, until humanity found them. The UHS Endeavour sailed through the void, its reinforced titanium, hull gleaming against the backdrop of distant stars. It was a vessel of exploration, one of humanity's finest. Unlike the warships of the established powers, the Endeavour was designed for discovery. Equipped with long-range sensors, deep space scanners, and atmospheric survey drones. Humanity was new to the galactic stage, still carving its place among the vast network of civilizations that had existed for millennia. Their presence was tolerated but not embraced. They were not feared, nor were they respected. Not yet. Captain Elias Carter stood at the bridge, hands clasped behind his back as he gazed at the holographic display before him. The latest scan results scrolled across the screen. Just another unremarkable star system. Another dead world, or so it seemed. "Sir, I'm picking up something unusual," came the voice of Lieutenant Marissa Vale, her fingers dancing over the sensor controls. Carter turned instantly alert. "Unusual how?" Vale frowned. "It's a settlement. Barely functional, but there are definite life signs." That made Carter's brow furrow. This system was supposed to be empty. No colonies, no known installations, no strategic value whatsoever. "Are we picking up any active transmissions?" "No, sir. If there is technology down there, it's either degraded or non-functional." Vale hesitated before adding, "The atmospheric readings aren't promising. Oxygen levels are low, and there's evidence of long-term environmental collapse. A dying world." Carter's gut twisted. "Take us in," he ordered. The Endeavour's engines hummed as it descended through the thin, hazy atmosphere. The planet below was a wasteland of jagged rock formations, deep fissures running through the ground like open wounds. The air was thick with dust, swirling in violent gusts across the cracked terrain. Then they saw it. The settlement, if it could even be called that, lay in the shadow of a crumbling mountain ridge. structures made from rusted metal and scavenged. Debris barely stood, their skeletal frames battered by time and erosion. Smoke drifted from crude fire pits, the only source of warmth in an otherwise lifeless landscape. And then, movement. Figures emerged from the ruins, their forms gaunt and withered. Their skin, once vibrant with the deep violet hues of their ancestors, had faded into a sickly pale gray. Their limbs were thin, their clothing tattered. Carter's breath caught. These weren't just settlers, they were survivors. One of them stepped forward, his frame tall but weakened by malnutrition and time. His silver eyes, dulled by hardship, locked onto Carter's with something between caution and desperation. "Who are you?" His voice was hoarse, cracked from years of breathing thin air. Carter stepped forward, his uniform crisp and unblemished, compared to the ragged figures before him. "We're from Earth," he said. "We're explorers." A pause. "Who are you?" For a long moment, there was silence. Then, the figure spoke, his voice barely more than a whisper. "We are the Tvelan." The weight of the name hit like a thunderclap. Everyone on the bridge had heard of the Tvelan. They were legends, ghosts of a people long thought lost to time. If any had survived, it was believed they had been absorbed into the underbelly of the galaxy, scattered among the slave markets of the dominions. But they hadn't vanished. They had been left to rot. For hours, the crew of the Endeavour worked, distributing medical supplies, emergency rations, and oxygen supplements. Dr. Amelia Royce, the ship's chief medical officer, performed hurried examinations, her expression growing darker with each scan. "These people are dying," she muttered, voice shaking with anger. "Malnutrition, oxygen deprivation, untreated infections. Some of them have suffered broken bones that never healed properly. They weren't just abandoned. They were condemned." Lieutenant Vale's face was grim. "Why would the Council allow this?" Carter exhaled slowly. "They didn't allow it, they ignored it." The truth was becoming clearer with every passing moment. The galaxy hadn't simply forgotten the Tvelan. It had chosen to. The Zervans had committed the crime. The Council had turned its back, and if humanity walked away now, they would be no different. Carter looked at the faces of the Tvelan, their sunken eyes, their trembling hands, their desperate hope. They couldn't just leave. But if they chose to help, they would be making a dangerous enemy, and the galaxy would not forgive their defiance. Captain Elias Carter stood on the bridge of the UHS Endeavour, staring at the desolate world below. The Tvelan had survived against all odds, but barely. Their settlement was nothing more than a graveyard of forgotten souls, and if they remained here, it was only a matter of time before they perished completely. But helping them wasn't just an act of kindness. It was an act of war. The Zervan Dominion had declared the Tvelan extinct centuries ago, and the Galactic Council, in its endless corruption, had allowed it. If humanity intervened, they wouldn't just be saving lives, they would be challenging the status quo. The silence on the bridge was heavy as Carter weighed the risks. Lieutenant Marissa Vale was the first to speak. "Sir, if we bring them aboard, we're violating multiple interstellar regulations. The Council could sanction us." "Sanctions would be the least of our problems," said Commander Darius Voss, his dark eyes unreadable. "The Zervans would take it as a direct act of defiance. Their dominion isn't just powerful, it's ruthless. We'd be putting Earth at risk." The tension was thick, but Carter's decision had already been made. "Let me make this clear," he said, turning to face his officers. "These people have been abandoned for centuries. We have a chance to save them." He paused, eyes burning with conviction. "I won't turn my back on them. If that makes us enemies of the Zervans, so be it." Vale exhaled slowly. "Then we need a plan." Carter nodded. "We're not just going to rescue them. We're going to bring them home." The Endeavour wasn't built for mass evacuation. It had a complement of 500 crew members, and only enough cargo space for a few hundred passengers at most. The Tvelan numbered in the thousands, far too many to evacuate in a single trip, but leaving anyone behind wasn't an option. "We'll make multiple trips if we have to," Carter said. "But first we need to secure a safe extraction point." Vale ran a scan of the system. The closest Zervan patrol route is 3 light-years away. That gives us a window. But not a big one. The moment we break orbit, we risk detection. Dr. Amelia Royce, who had been tending to the sick and injured Tavalan in the medbay, chimed in over the comms. Some of them won't survive the trip if we don't stabilize them first. Their bodies aren't adapted to sudden environmental changes anymore. Carter clenched his jaw. Then we prioritize the weakest. Get them aboard first. It wasn't enough. Even with everything working in their favor, they needed a distraction. Something to keep the Zervans occupied while they carried out the evacuation. Commander Voss smirked. We could rig a false energy signature on the opposite side of the system. Make it look like a reactor's about to go critical. If they think there's a catastrophe brewing, they'll send a probe first. Instead of mobilizing ships, Carter nodded. Do it. On the surface, the Tavalan listened in silence as Carter explained the plan. The weakened, half-starved survivors barely had the strength to stand, yet their eyes still held something remarkable. Hope, an elder Tavalan, Sarekta, stepped forward. His voice, though weak, carried the weight of centuries. You are the first to offer us more than pity, he said. The first to offer us a future. Carter met his gaze. Then let's make sure you have one. The evacuation began. The first wave of Tavalan, those too weak to walk, were carried aboard by human crew members, their frail bodies wrapped in thermal blankets. The medical bay filled within minutes, Dr. Royce and her team working against time to keep them stable. Meanwhile, engineers worked to construct a makeshift landing zone, clearing debris and preparing an area large enough to accommodate the Endeavor's shuttles. Every minute mattered, and then the worst happened. The moment the Endeavor prepared for its second wave of evacuees, Vale's console flashed red. Zervan ship detected, she said, her voice tight. One destroyer-class vessel. It's scanning the system. Carter's pulse quickened. Too soon. They haven't seen us yet, Vale continued. They're still at long range, but if they get any closer. Voss cut in. We need to act. Fast, Carter's mind raced. The Zervans were notorious for their scorched earth policy. If they found evidence of Tavalan survivors, they wouldn't just attack, they'd exterminate them. We stick to the plan, Carter said. Activate the false energy signature. Make it look like a reactor's failing. If we're lucky, they'll take the bait. Vale's hands flew over the controls. Deploying now. On the far side of the system, a massive energy spike appeared. A simulated reactor meltdown. As expected, the Zervan destroyer immediately altered course, moving toward the false signal. It worked, but it wouldn't last. With the Zervans temporarily distracted, the crew of the Endeavor worked at breakneck speed, loading as many Tavalan as possible onto the ship. By the time the Zervans realized they had been deceived, it was too late. The Endeavor broke orbit, engines flaring as it prepared for an emergency jump to FTL. Vale's voice was tight. They're locking weapons, Carter gritted his teeth. No way in hell. Evasive maneuvers, fire decoys. Explosions flared in the void as the Endeavor released its countermeasures. Zervan torpedoes locked onto the false signals, detonating harmlessly in the empty void. Then, in a flash of blinding blue light, the Endeavor jumped. The Zervans were left chasing ghosts. Hours later, deep in human space, Carter stood in the Endeavor's observation deck, staring at the survivors now safely aboard. The Tavalan, once nothing more than a forgotten people, had been given a second chance. But the cost had yet to be paid. The Galactic Council would not be pleased. The Zervans would not forget this act of defiance. And now, humanity had done something no other race had dared. They had challenged the balance of power. Carter exhaled, his grip tightening. This wasn't just a rescue mission. This was the start of a war. The Herrick Empire's blockade over Vela Prime was a silent, unshakable reality. The vast city ships of the Herrick fleet loomed in orbit like immovable gods, their dark hulls absorbing the starlight, making them blend into the void. Vela Prime itself, once a bustling trade hub of multiple species, now lay suffocated under an economic and military siege. No ships were allowed to leave. No aid was permitted to arrive. The galaxy had turned its back on the people of Vela Prime, choosing neutrality over confrontation with the Herrick. But humanity did not forget. Among the stars, the warship UNS Valor emerged from a slipstream corridor at the edge of the system. Its matte black hull bore no markings of allegiance, no transmission codes that could be intercepted. It was a ghost in the darkness, silently watching the massive fleet orbiting the planet below. On the bridge, Captain Elias Varan studied the holographic projections of the blockade. His officers stood around him, their faces tense with unspoken resolve. "This is worse than we thought," Lieutenant Kara Holt muttered. Her gloved hands danced over the console, refining sensor readings. The Herrick have ground-based suppression arrays. Any attempt to break in conventionally would trigger orbital retaliation. Elias nodded. The blockade wasn't just physical. It was a stranglehold of control. If they acted too soon, the Herrick would glass entire sectors of the planet in response. The Valari people wouldn't just be starved, they would be erased. "Options?" Elias asked, keeping his voice calm. "Direct assault is suicide," Commander Dane Richter responded immediately. He was ex-military, a soldier who had walked away from the endless bureaucracy of human alliances in favor of something more personal. "Their main dreadnoughts alone could wipe us from existence before we even breached the perimeter." Elias turned to Lieutenant Anya Soren, his intelligence officer. "Tell me we have a way in." Anya's emerald eyes flickered as she studied her datapad. "We have a way, but it's going to make us a lot of enemies." Elias smirked. "We already made that choice when we came here." She gestured to the tactical map. "The Herrick don't expect outside intervention. Their security relies on overwhelming presence, not preparation for an actual incursion. We don't have to fight their entire fleet. We just have to find the crack." And there it was. A small, unnoticed gap in their coverage. One sector where the Herrick were blind for a fraction of a cycle. "Their flagship is broadcasting a high-energy suppression field over the southern hemisphere," Anya explained. "But their power systems can't sustain full coverage in every orbit. Every 12 hours there's a 15-minute delay when the flagship recharges its core reactors." Elias leaned forward, staring at the numbers. "That's our window," Kara frowned. "A 15-minute window? That's barely enough time to slip a team through and disable their primary relay," Anya finished. "It's not about taking down their whole fleet. We just need to cut their control long enough for the resistance on the ground to move." A long silence stretched across the bridge. They were a single warship, standing against an empire that had ruled this region. For centuries. It was madness. But then again, wasn't it always? Elias took a deep breath and straightened. "Prepare the infiltration team. We're not here to start a war. We're here to remind the galaxy that not everyone turns away when people cry out for help." The officers exchanged nods, their resolve hardening. The galaxy may have ignored the Valari, but humanity had made its choice. They would stand for the forgotten. The UNS Valor drifted in the void like a predator waiting for the right moment to strike. Every second was accounted for. Every plan, calculated down to the last breath. The Herrick fleet still hovered in orbit, unaware that a human warship had already entered their domain, watching, waiting. In the dim glow of the armory, the strike team suited up. Commander Dane Richter tightened the seals on his armor, his movements practiced, efficient. The rest of the team followed, their expressions hardened by the gravity of what lay ahead. They weren't just infiltrating an enemy fleet. They were about to challenge the authority of an empire that no one else dared to oppose. Lieutenant Kara Holt adjusted her rifle, her eyes locked on Richter. "You know this is insane, right?" Richter smirked. "I'd be worried if it wasn't." The plan was simple, at least in theory. The Herrick fleet relied on a centralized control node to manage the blockade's planetary suppression systems. That node was housed on one of the Herrick command stations, a massive orbital platform stationed near their flagship. If the humans could disable or corrupt that system, it would disrupt the blockade's ability to monitor and control Vela Prime's airspace, allowing resistance forces on the planet to move freely. But to get inside, they had to sneak past thousands of Herrick warships. The infiltration would be handled by a modified stealth shuttle, coated with sensor masking technology. Not perfect, but enough to slip through their detection grid during the brief window in the Herrick's power cycle. In the Valor's Bridge, Captain Elias Varen watched the countdown. His voice was calm, measured. You all know what's at stake. We don't get a second chance at this. Richter clipped his helmet in place, his voice carrying through the comms. Then we won't need one. The stealth shuttle launched, vanishing into the black. Inside the cockpit, Kara kept her grip steady on the controls, guiding them through the dense web of Herrick patrol patterns. Every passing warship was a monumental beast of firepower, any one of which could obliterate them with a single barrage. The team remained silent, tension thick as Kara navigated the narrowest of corridors through enemy sensors. The moment of truth arrived. The Herrick flagship's reactor core entered its recharge cycle. The suppression field flickered, an invisible moment, but the UNS Valor's AI confirmed it. Kara took the opportunity. She pushed the shuttle into a controlled descent, riding the shadow of a Herrick supply transport like a parasite latching onto its host. They slipped through. As the command station came into view, its sheer scale was staggering. A city-sized fortress hanging in orbit, bristling, with defensive turrets and patrol ships. It was a hub of control from which the Herrick dictated the fate of Vela Prime. Kara pulled the shuttle in close, magnetizing to the underbelly of a maintenance port. A narrow docking hatch waited, one that wasn't supposed to be used for unauthorized personnel. Richter and his team moved quickly, exiting the shuttle with silent precision. Each step was measured, each movement designed to minimize detection. They had studied Herrick patrol cycles, internal security rotations, every factor that would give them an edge in the short time they had. The first breach was clean. 2 Herrick sentries patrolled the access corridor, their tall, sinewy forms moving with the grace of natural hunters. Before they even had a chance to react, Richter's team moved. 2 suppressed shots. The guards dropped before they could sound an alarm. Moving deeper into the facility, they followed the intel provided by Lieutenant Anya Soren. The control node was located within the core of the station, heavily fortified, and accessible only through high-security checkpoints. Time was running out. The Herrick flagship's reactor would stabilize soon, meaning their stealth advantage would disappear. Richter's team pushed forward, knowing there was no turning back. And then, the alarm sounded. Somewhere, somehow, they had been seen. The mission had just become a battle for survival. The moment the alarm blared through the command station's corridors, Richter's team knew their window of stealth had slammed shut. Herrick soldiers would be moving in fast, cutting off every exit, sealing every bulkhead. The mission had just transformed from a precision infiltration to a desperate sprint against time. Richter took cover against a wall, his rifle pressed tight to his chest. Kara, reroute us. We're not making it to the main corridor. Kara Holt pulled up a tactical overlay of the station, her cybernetic uplink scanning for alternative paths. There's an access shaft leading straight to the core, but she hesitated, scanning further. It's heat-vented. If they cycle the cooling system while we're in there, we're cooked. Then we don't give them the chance, Richter said. Move. The team sprinted down a side corridor, their boots barely making a sound against the alloy flooring. Behind them, the distinct guttural clicks of Herrick communication echoed through the halls as squads began to converge. Kara reached the shaft first, using a laser cutter to slice open a maintenance panel. Behind it, a vertical tunnel dropped into darkness, heat shimmering faintly from below. The core's radiation shielding flickered as the station's automated systems worked to regulate power flow. Not stable, but survivable. No time to second-guess, Richter said. He swung over the edge and dropped into the abyss. One by one, the team followed. As they descended, the sound of heavy footfalls above signaled the arrival of the Herrick forces. A burst of plasma fire ripped into the walls, missing Kara by inches, as she slipped into the shaft. The team fell through the dark, catching themselves on cables, slowing their descent with practiced control. Richter hit the bottom first, rolling into a crouch with his rifle raised. The core control chamber sprawled before them, a massive cylindrical space lined with towering data conduits, glowing with alien runes. In the center stood the control node. The structure was a monolithic construct of alien engineering, pulsating, with energy as it regulated the planetary suppression field. Around it, a squad of Herrick engineers and guards worked feverishly, their reptilian eyes narrowing as they registered the intruders. There was no time for negotiation. Richter's team opened fire. Pulse rounds cut through the air, striking the nearest Herrick soldiers before they could react. The engineers scattered, some ducking behind consoles, others trying to activate defensive protocols. A Herrick enforcer lunged forward, wielding an energy blade crackling with violet plasma. Richter barely dodged in time, the heat of the weapon singing his armor as he pivoted and fired point-blank into the alien's chest. The battle intensified. Kara hacked into the control node's interface, her fingers flying across a hollow panel. I can't disable it remotely. The command codes are physically encrypted. We need a hard override. Lieutenant Jace Terran ripped a charge from his belt. Then we do it the old-fashioned way. He planted the device against the control node's core module, the timer set for 30 seconds. Richter didn't hesitate. Everyone, move, now! The team sprinted back toward an auxiliary exit just as reinforcements stormed in. Plasma bolts screamed past them, melting through bulkheads and sending shrapnel flying. Richter fired a burst behind him, dropping another pursuer before reaching the exit hatch. Then, detonation. The blast sent a shockwave rippling through the station, the force knocking Richter's team off their feet. The control node erupted in a burst of shattered metal and cascading energy. Sparks rained from the ceiling, consoles flickered violently, and the planetary suppression field, the Herrick's ultimate stranglehold on Vela Prime, collapsed. On the surface, the Resistance fighters felt the shift immediately. Their comms, once scrambled by the Herrick blockade, now came alive with chatter. Weapon systems rebooted, ships powered up, defensive grids activated. The battle for Vela Prime had truly begun. But Richter and his team weren't safe yet. As the station trembled, from the explosion, the Herrick flagship above adjusted its trajectory. Massive energy signatures spiked on the UNS Valor's sensors. Captain Elias Varan gritted his teeth as the warning flashed across his console. They're not letting us leave. The Herrick weren't just going to hunt Richter's team down, they were going to destroy the entire station, taking everyone with it. The moment the suppression field collapsed, the atmosphere on Vela Prime shifted. For the first time in decades, the planet's people saw the sky open up. The oppressive shimmer of the Herrick field that had hung over them like an unbreakable chain was gone. Across the battle-scarred cities, Resistance forces realized the impossible had happened. Their comms crackled back to life, their weapons, once dampened and ineffective, roared with renewed energy. Shielded bunkers and automated defenses that had been rendered useless by the Herrick's control flickered back online, their dormant systems awakening like slumbering giants. And then came the orders. Push forward! The suppression field is down! Hit them with everything we've got! From the battered remnants of the old planetary defense force to the scattered civilians who had hidden for too long, humanity surged. Above them, however, Richter's team wasn't celebrating. They were running for their lives. Inside the Herrick command station, chaos reigned. The explosion that tore through the core control chamber had done more than destroy the suppression node. It had crippled critical power conduits, disrupting life, support, gravity stabilizers, and emergency containment systems. Fires raged along the corridors as overloaded power grids erupted in bursts of white-hot plasma. But the Herrick weren't retreating. They were enraged. Richter and his team sprinted through the smoke-choked corridors, their oxygen scrubbers struggling against the deteriorating atmosphere. Behind them, the sounds of alien roars and harsh guttural commands echoed through the halls. Where's our exit? Richter barked, keeping his rifle up as he led the team forward. Kara's cybernetic uplink flickered with static before stabilizing. Main hangar, 2 decks below, but the Herrick are sealing off sections. If we don't move now, we'll be cut off. They didn't need to be told twice. A bulkhead slammed shut ahead of them, another trap. But this time, they were ready. Jace skidded to a stop, slamming an explosive charge onto the door's control panel. The charge detonated with a sharp concussive blast, sending a shower of sparks cascading as the bulkhead locks failed. The heavy doors groaned, then slid open just enough for them to squeeze through. On the other side, they ran straight into a Herrick blockade. A squad of heavily armored Herrick enforcers stood between them and the only path forward, weapons raised. The lead warrior, a hulking brute nearly 8 feet tall, his carapace lined with thick, jagged plating, stepped forward. His twin plasma blades ignited with a snap hiss, the violet energy crackling in the dim light. Richter didn't hesitate. snapped his rifle up, and fired a precision shot straight at the warrior's head. The plasma round struck home, but barely scorched the alien's thick skull plating. The Herrick snarled and charged. The corridor erupted into a close quarters. Firefight, pulse rounds, and plasma bolts filled the air. Richter's team moved with lethal precision, taking cover where they could and firing at weak points in the enemy's armor. But the Herrick had numbers, and they were relentless. Jace engaged the blade-wielding warrior in brutal hand-to-hand combat, dodging a swipe that melted a nearby panel into slag. He countered with a plasma-coated combat knife, slipping under the Herrick's guard to drive the blade into its exposed side. The warrior shrieked in pain but didn't fall. Instead, it grabbed Jace with a crushing grip, lifting him off the ground. The human's armor groaned as the Herrick's powerful hands threatened to break bone. Before it could finish the job, a sniper round punched straight through its eye socket. The alien staggered, its grip loosening just enough for Jace to break free and drive his knife into its throat. As the warrior collapsed, Kara turned her smoking rifle to another target, dropping 2 Herrick soldiers in rapid succession. But the longer they fought, the worse their odds became. More Herrick were closing in. "We need to move, now!" Kara shouted. Richter tossed a grenade into the thickest cluster of enemies. The resulting explosion tore through the blockade, giving them the opening they needed. Without hesitation, they sprinted through the wreckage, heading straight for the hangar. Meanwhile, aboard the UNS Valor, Captain Elias Varan watched his tactical displays with narrowed eyes. "The station's falling apart," his XO reported. "Power readings are unstable, and we're detecting structural collapses across multiple decks." Varan wasn't surprised. The Herrick know they've lost the field. They're going to destroy the station rather than let it fall into our hands. And as if on cue, new warning klaxons blared. Massive energy surge from the Herrick flagship. Varan's heart pounded. The Herrick warship, a behemoth of alien engineering, was charging its main cannon. A weapon powerful enough to reduce the station to atoms. "How long until they fire?" 3 minutes, sir." Varan gritted his teeth. 3 minutes. That was all. The time Richter's team had left before they were vaporized along with the station. Weapon status? Shields at 60%. Plasma batteries online, but we're still outgunned. Varan made his decision. Prepare for a direct assault. We buy them time, no matter what it costs. Back on the station, Richter's team reached the hangar, only to find their escape ship under fire. The small UNS dropship had been their ticket out, but a squad of Herrick shock troopers had already reached it, bombarding it with plasma fire. The hull glowed red-hot from the sustained assault, and the pilot, Lieutenant Bryce Novak, was pinned down behind a damaged engine block, desperately returning fire. Richter wasted no time. "Kara, find me an alternate route to the ship." "There isn't one. We fight our way through." So that's exactly what they did. The battle for the hangar was ruthless. Plasma blasts erupted in every direction, the sharp scent of scorched metal and burning ozone filling the air. Richter's team moved like a well-oiled machine, weaving through cover, eliminating targets with ruthless efficiency. At the center of the chaos, the Herrick squad leader, a towering warrior clad in crimson armor, barked commands, directing its troops with ruthless precision. Richter locked eyes with the alien. It raised its weapon, a massive electromagnetic disruptor capable of tearing through their armor in a single shot. Richter didn't give it the chance. He charged. With a fluid motion, he closed the distance, ducking under the disruptor's barrel and slamming a combat knife into the Herrick's side. The alien roared, swinging wildly, but Richter dodged, twisting the blade deeper before grabbing the enemy's own weapon and turning it against them. One shot, a blinding pulse of energy lanced through the Herrick leader's chest, hurling it backward. In a smoking heap, with their commander dead, the remaining Herrick faltered. That hesitation was all the team needed. "Novak, get that ship running." "Already on it," Novak shouted as he sprinted toward the cockpit, dodging stray fire. The dropship's engines roared to life. "Go, go, go!" The team rushed aboard, plasma fire ricocheting off the hull as the ship lifted off. But they weren't safe yet. As the dropship burst from the hangar into open space, the Herrick flagship's superweapon reached full charge. Captain Varan to Richter, "Get clear now." Richter barely had time to respond before the Herrick flagship fired. A searing beam of annihilation lanced toward the station. And the Valor moved to intercept. Captain Varen had made his choice. He was going to block the shot. The Herrick superweapon fired. A searing lance of annihilation erupted from the enemy flagship, a beam of raw destruction that would vaporize the station, Richter's team, and everything within its path. It was the kind of weapon that left nothing behind, not wreckage, not debris, just emptiness. And yet, at that moment, the UNS Valor moved. Captain Elias Varen had made his choice. The massive human warship shifted its position with pinpoint precision, its powerful thrusters firing at full burn as it placed itself directly in the beam's trajectory. The impact was instantaneous and catastrophic. The Herrick superweapon slammed into the Valor's shields with the force of a collapsing star. The ship's defensive barriers flared violently, glowing white-hot as the energy transfer sent shockwaves across the hull. For a fleeting moment, the shields held. Then, they buckled. A blinding explosion rippled through space as the shields collapsed, exposing the Valor to the full brunt of the blast. The outer hull liquefied in places, entire decks breaking apart, vaporized in an instant. On the bridge, alarms screamed. Hull breaches across multiple sections. We've lost primary propulsion. Fire is spreading, containment failing. Varen gritted his teeth, gripping the armrests of his command chair. He could feel the ship groaning under the immense strain, entire sections tearing apart under the raw energy. And yet, they had done it. The Valor had absorbed the Herrick's doomsday shot. The station was still intact, and most importantly, Richter's team was still alive. Inside the rattling cockpit of the human dropship, Richter and his team watched in stunned silence as the UNS Valor took the full force of the Herrick's weapon. "God damn it!" Jace's voice shook with fury. Kara's hands clenched into fists. "They took the hit for us!" The comms crackled. "Valor, come in!" Richter barked. "Varen, do you read me?" A few moments of dead silence. Then, "We're still here." It was Varen's voice. Weak, but steady. "Ship's crippled," he continued, the sound of sparking consoles and emergency sirens filling the background. "We're venting atmosphere. Power's failing. We won't last much longer." Richter slammed his fist against the bulkhead. "We're coming for you." "Negative," Varan cut in. "You'll never make it in time. Like hell we won't. Listen to me." Varan's voice hardened. "This isn't about saving us anymore. The Herrick, they're not retreating. That ship's still operational. And we just used everything we had to stop that shot." Richter's blood ran cold. He turned to Kara. "Confirm it." Kara's eyes flicked over the scanner data. Then, her expression darkened. "The Herrick ship is recharging. They're going for a second shot. We don't have the Valor to block it this time." The realization hit like a hammer. The first blast had been stopped, but the second one would finish the job. If they fired again, Vela Prime, the Resistance, every human survivor, they'd all be wiped out. "Then we take the fight to them," Richter said, his voice steel. The Herrick warship loomed ahead, a monstrous behemoth of alien engineering. It was nearly 10 times the size of the human dropship, bristling with heavy weaponry, its main cannon already drawing in energy for another annihilation shot. A frontal assault was suicide. A retreat meant the planet's destruction. There was only one option left. "We're boarding that ship," Richter declared. Kara and Jace exchanged glances, but neither argued. They knew there was no other way. "How the hell are we getting through their defenses?" Jace asked. "We go in the same way we got out of the station," Kara said, a grim smile forming. "Fast, loud, and right through their damn hull." Richter turned to Novak. "Take us in." The dropship engines roared as the tiny human craft veered straight toward the Herrick flagship. Enemy gunners scrambled to respond. Plasma cannons locked onto them. Anti-air turrets swiveled. Missile pods hummed to life. Then, they opened fire. The dropship twisted and rolled, dodging plasma bolts by mere meters, skimming past the Herrick's outer defenses. Explosions erupted. All around them, the shields straining against the barrage. "Almost there," Novak shouted. "Hold on! Bracing for impact!" The dropship slammed into the Herrick's hull at full speed. The impact was earth-shattering. The metal screamed, fire and debris exploding outward as the ship punched a breach into the enemy's armor. Inside the dropship, the world spun. Richter and his team crashed against the walls, the force nearly breaking bones. Then, silence. They had made it. They were inside the Herrick's flagship. And now, it was time to end this war. Silence. For a brief moment, the only sound was the hissing of steam escaping from the breach in the Herrick warship's hull. Fragments of shattered armor plating floated in zero gravity, illuminated by the flickering emergency lights. Then, movement. Richter's boots clamped onto the twisted metal, his team following suit as they pushed through the wreckage, weapons at the ready. The breach had taken them into a secondary corridor, its walls pulsing with dim, alien light. Comms check. Richter's voice was sharp. Kara, online. Jace, still breathing. Novak, ship's toast, but I'm good. The dropship had done its job, punched a hole straight into the Herrick warship. But it wouldn't be flying again. They were stranded. No turning back now, Kara murmured. Richter nodded. Then let's move. The team advanced quickly, sweeping through the corridors. The Herrick ship was massive, a labyrinth of twisting halls, towering bulkheads, and bioluminescent control panels that pulsed like veins. But it was also strangely empty. Jace's grip tightened on his rifle. Where the hell is everyone? They had just breached an enemy flagship. There should have been a wave of resistance. Yet there were no alarms, no soldiers, no automated defenses. It was wrong. Too wrong. And then, the walls shifted. A low guttural hum vibrated through the metal. The bioluminescent lights pulsed, faster and faster, turning a deep, crimson red. A voice echoed through the ship. Not through comms, not through speakers, but inside their minds. You have come far, humans, but you will not leave this place. Richter's breath hitched. It wasn't just a voice, it was pressure. Cold, calculating, ancient. And suddenly, they understood. The ship was alive, and it had been waiting for them. The walls convulsed. The empty corridor erupted with movement as grotesque, multi-limbed figures emerged from the shifting. Metal. The Herrick soldiers hadn't been missing. They had been part of the ship. They peeled away from the walls, their elongated, armored bodies snapping into formation. Each one stood nearly 8 feet tall, their featureless faces twisting, reshaping, revealing jagged mandibles and rows of blackened teeth. Then they attacked. The first Herrick lunged forward, its bladed arms slashing through the air. Richter dodged, his pulse rifle already firing. The plasma round slammed into the alien's chest, burning through the exoskeletal plating. But it kept coming. Jace fired 2 rounds at another, blowing half its torso apart. But the pieces began reassembling, the biomass crawling back together. "They're regenerating!" Kara shouted, emptying a full clip into another Herrick. It staggered but didn't fall. Richter gritted his teeth. Conventional weapons weren't enough. They had to find the core. The ship wasn't just a vessel. It was a living entity, and like anything alive, it had a brain. Kara hacked into a nearby console, bypassing its alien encryption. "I've got something," she gasped. "Their central command node. It's deep within the core chamber. That's where we're going." Richter reloaded his rifle, his gaze locked on the next corridor. But the ship wasn't going to make it easy. The Herrick forces surged forward, adapting to their tactics. Some melted into the walls, reappearing behind them. Others split apart, their bodies morphing into swarms of smaller insect-like creatures that scuttled across the floor and walls. Novak roared, his flamethrower igniting the passage. The alien creatures shrieked as fire engulfed them, their regenerative abilities struggling to counter the raw heat. "Move!" Richter ordered. They ran. Through the twisting halls, dodging traps, cutting down pursuing enemies, ducking under collapsing metal. Every moment counted. And finally, they reached it. The core chamber. The chamber was unlike anything they had seen. A vast, cathedral-like expanse, pulsating with an eerie blue-green glow. In the center, a massive structure loomed. A shifting, liquid form suspended in the air, tendrils of energy stretching from it, spreading across the ship like veins. It was the mind of the vessel, and it knew they were there. A voice, deeper now, more guttural, spoke. "You should not have come." The walls themselves moved. Herrick soldiers rose from the floor, the ceiling, the shadows, dozens, no, hundreds. The team stood their ground. "Kara, how do we kill this thing?" Richter yelled. Kara's fingers flew across her datapad. "There's an energy feedback loop. If we overload it, it'll take the entire ship with it." "Then do it. It won't be instant. I need time." Richter's grip tightened on his rifle. Then, he turned to Jace and Novak. They understood. "We hold the line." Jace locked and loaded. "Let's make it count." Novak primed his last incendiary charge. Hell yeah. And then, the Herrick charged. It was a battle of desperation, of sheer will. Richter fired shot after shot, cutting down the monstrosities before they could reach Kara. Jace fought like a demon, his blades slicing through Herrick flesh, the sheer force of his attacks tearing them apart faster than they could regenerate. Novak held the rear, unleashing bursts of white-hot flames, turning the alien horrors to ash. But they were losing ground. The swarm was too great. Then, Kara's console flashed green. "Done!" the core screamed. The energy tendrils snapped violently, arcing with electricity. The entire ship began convulsing, its structure collapsing in on itself. "Go!" Richter shouted. They ran. The ship was tearing apart, the walls cracking open. As the core detonated, Richter grabbed Kara, hauling her forward as a shockwave ripped through the corridors. The breach was ahead, their only exit. Jace and Novak covered the rear, blasting apart the last of the pursuing Herrick, until the explosion took them. The ship imploded. Richter gasped for breath, his helmet display flashing warnings. He was floating, drifting in the wreckage, the burning remains of the Herrick flagship falling into the abyss. A voice crackled in his comms. "We got you, Commander." The survivors of Velaprime cheered. The war was over, and humanity had stood for the forgotten.